Imagine a world where blockchain technology fades into the background, where you don't have to think about wallets, bridges, or technical jargon. You just use it effortlessly, like swiping a credit card or streaming your favorite show. It sounds like a far-off dream, doesn't it? But what if I told you that dream is closer than you think? Meet Prabal Banerjee, a builder on the front lines of this transformation. As the co-founder of Avail, Prabal is tackling some of the most complex challenges in the blockchain space. He's not just thinking about scalability and data availability. He's reimagining how we interact with technology itself. His mission is to make blockchain invisible to the end user, so you can focus on living your life, not managing your tech. But this isn't just a story about technology. It's about a vision for the future of the internet, a future where the fragmented world of blockchains becomes unified, where interoperability isn't a buzzword, but a reality, and where the web evolves into something more intuitive, more creative, more human. Prabal's journey takes us through the pain points of today, like the frustration of bridging assets across chains, and into the solutions of tomorrow. He shares how Avail is building the infrastructure to make blockchain as seamless as the internet we know today. And just when you think it couldn't get more exciting, we dive into Avail's recent acquisition of Arcana, a move that could redefine how developers and users experience Web3. Because Web3 isn't some isolated experiment, free from the lessons of Web 2. It's a return to the web's roots, a chance to recapture the creativity and freedom of the early internet, but with the power of blockchain to make it more secure, more open, and more accessible. So if you've ever wondered what the future of blockchain looks like, or how it could change the way we live, work, and connect, this is a story with a happy ending just for you. Welcome to the Defiant Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Defiant Podcast. I'm your host Vinny, and I'm here with Prabal Banerjee, the co-founder of Avail and ex-research lead at Polygon. Thank you so much for being here, Prabal.
Thanks a lot, Vinny, for having me here. Very excited.
I thought we could get started. In your own words, can you tell us a little bit about what Avail is and what you do in order to create solutions for the wider DeFi community?
Yeah, I think at Avail, we are focused on the multi-chain experiences. And for that, we have been majorly focusing on scalability and removing fragmentation. So that's the two main verticals in which Avail focuses on. On the scalability side, we have been working on hyper-performant rollups and the ability to support them all along the way. And after having tons of successful chains using us on production and beyond, we realized that in this multi-chain world, it's just not enough to have scalability. You also need to have the tooling and the ability to merge the fragmentation for the end user. And that's where we have been focusing a lot lately. And that's where Avail Nexus and a ton of stuff that we have been doing revolves around. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to answer more questions in detail.
And indeed, I have those questions. So I'd love to start also with a question of what made you want to work on the fragmentation issue rather than, say, putting all of your eggs into the Ethereum basket or the Polygon basket or the Solana basket?
No, I think it was very simple. So when I joined Polygon at that time, I will probably give a long-winded historical answer here. But when I joined there, it was clear that, Ethereum needed to be scaled. And while working in Polygon, we saw that when a lot of, a lot of users and a lot of actions come to a single chain, there is never going to be a single chain which is able enough to serve all the users. At least to me, that was extremely clear from the very beginning. And that's when I started to think, that how can we enable this multi-chain world? Because there were already, people were calling Polygon, the alt L1, or is it like a side chain? Is it like, a true L2, or is it like, what is the security guarantee? So it was very clear that, the plethora of chains are going to come up. And already at that point in time, there were multitude of chains that were out there. It's not like, you only had Ethereum. Of course, Ethereum had all the user traction and programmability and the developers in the world. But still, there were good enough chains and ecosystems who were building alongside, which had a very good value proposition. And so even on that day, Polygon already had a multi-chain kind of a thesis back in the day. People didn't realize from the outside, but like early on, the white papers and such, when I joined, they were thinking about, the scalability issues, those like what if we can spin up more than one chain and so on. Of course, they focused their GTM onto the single chain, the POS chain, and that did brilliantly well.
Right.
But the multi-chain experience is going to be a reality was very, very clear. And then over the years, you saw that just unfolding, right? I mean, even if I, go back 6 months or a year back, you could see that rollups are going to be the status quo, that there will be multiple of these L1s with different value propositions and different kinds of user experiences and different kind of niche that they are trying to create or focus on, that will become clear. But if you look at the last 6 months, you would see that, the entire TradFi and the traditional markets and all the traditional Web2 players coming in and in one way, shape or form, trying to create a unique experience. And when you want to create unique experience, you want sovereignty and control over delivering those experiences. And that's where you need a chain of your own. Be that a rollup, be that an L1, be that an L3, be that a sovereign rollup, it doesn't matter. Like these are just technical differences.
Well, especially when we've seen so much just kind of identity politics when it comes to blockchains. You have the Bitcoiners and you've got the Ethereum maxis. Like there really are these communities that find their identity through a specific blockchain and more importantly, through what that blockchain can offer them. So I think you're making a great point as to why it makes sense to go for interoperability rather than just being like, okay, well, Bitcoin's digital gold and Ethereum's digital oil. And then those are our only options.
No, I think. And if you just look at, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you just look at Web 2, like forget Web 3 for a moment and what you're saying is like, the cult that we have created, this fragmentation that we have created in terms of community as well within the ecosystem. In Web 2, it's not that different. Like if you think about, there are, these Unix maxis and then there were mainframe maxis and then there are cloud maxis and so on. But even today, if you think like, what web framework are you going to use? There is a Next.js kind of thing. There is a React, like the OG React community. And then there is, what type of deployment do you do? Do you do a Vercel or something else or a render or something else? And these are separate products.
Right.
The good thing is that me and you don't have to talk about it. That's the beauty of it, right? Like
I'm so relaxed now.
Yeah. I mean, do you even care, like we are recording this on Riverside, right? And do you even care what Riverside has used on their backend to create this amazing product? You don't.
I care that it works.
Yeah, exactly. And we were thinking, that how can we enable a Web3 user to have this? That not to think about what chain is my account on, what is the app that I supports. Like how can I just go and use an application? Forget the backend. The backend will have impact on various different things. I can say that, this website is secure because of particular version of React framework being used on the backend. That is great, but that's a developer's problem. That's not your problem. You trust the Riverside team to deliver good products, and they have enough domain expertise to be able to deliver these in a secure manner. That should be the relationship between users and developers and infrastructure. Whereas in blockchains, we have inherently come up with this mentality that the end user needs to know about the infrastructure and the developer's pain and this tooling and all that, which is probably the wrong way to go for mass adoption, right? So that's at least from the way that I think about why this is an important problem to be solved at all.
That is a great segue into my next question, which has to do with bridging, because that seems to be the go-to solution for cross-chain interactions. And I'm sure there are some of our listeners out there, throwing stuff at the screen right now, because bridging is not always an easy solution. And sometimes things get lost, and sometimes it takes forever, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing it. You just want to do your thing, right? So can you tell me a little bit about something you've advocated for, which is blockchain meta-interoperability? Can you tell us, what does this mean, and how does it improve the experience for both developers and users?
Is again the same. Like, if you think about, I will just take a payment example, right? If you think about how payments work in general financial rails, if you are going and paying for a product on some website which is outside your jurisdiction and so on, even within the jurisdiction it's pretty similar, but it's a subset. But it's the same, like there are multiple rails. Some rails work for some sort of subset. You then tie them all together. You make sure that the fund which has been collected from you, some way, shape or form, in some amount of time, reaches you in the end. Like reaches the seller on the end, right? So that is the general experience. You do not care whether Swift is working, what Swift works on. You do not go and have a user interface to use Swift. You do not think about what the settlement process between two banks are. You do not think about how does Visa settle their account with the bank in which your card has been issued. You do not think that how does Stripe bill Visa on the back end and how things go from there. So I know that I'm giving an analogy, and analogies are never perfect, and this might be an incorrect analogy, but that is the experience what we want to enable, right? So bridging is always a reality. I cannot change bridging reality because it's a fundamental problem of how does two blockchains talk to one another.
Right.
If two blockchains need to talk to one another, there needs to be a bridge. I mean, that's how you define bridge. You can define bridge in many other ways, by the way, but that's generally the colloquial way of defining a bridge. So if two blockchains need to talk to each other, they need to have a bridge. I am only advocating for the user to not know this. So that's all I'm advocating for, because bridges have been a major pain point, because users have to now choose a bridge. Users have to now think about what the security of the bridge is, what the time of it is, and so on. They cannot make similar choices as they do. Like, for example, if I pay with my credit card, I get charged, let's say 1% extra, but I get credit card points, for example. Right? Or if I go and drop a check, it will be cheaper, but it will take you 3 days, for example, right? So these are the cost of convenience that people are used to paying, which is exactly what it should be on the bridging side as well. If it is fast, it is more secure, you are okay to pay a little bit of premium, but all of these are kind of abstracted. You just give a choice to the developer knows to do their due diligence. You hope that the developer knows to do their due diligence. And that is essentially why we are creating Avail Nexus, which we like to think as a class of protocols. It is a class of protocols which use existing infrastructure. We are not here to, rethink this blockchain infrastructure. We are here to say, like, there is an existing infrastructure. We can produce better infrastructures in some places, but not in all places. So why don't we create this abstraction kind of engine on top, kind of create this high liquidity infrastructure on top, so that some of these can be abstracted. And then we pick and choose which ones work for which kind of actions, and use which kind of assets, and which kind of chains, and which kind of wallets, and etc. etc. We will do all of that thinking, because we, along with the developer of this application, can jointly decide the best for that user. User can do that due diligence.
Right, exactly. I'm really excited that you and your team are taking for granted the fact that consumers are lazy, because I think that's a big problem in crypto, where everyone's like, oh, well, all they have to do is download a wallet and write down their seed phrase and put it somewhere safe and do this and do that. And it's like, studies have shown for decades that consumers don't want any of that. They want the easiest route possible. And I think a lot of people that are building in blockchain are like, oh, well, we'll just educate the user. And it's like, why are you taking the harder route? let's use psychology, which we already have, right? People want to just live their lives and do their things, and they're going to pick the product that's easiest. And that's why they're still on credit cards versus crypto, So I really like that your team is not fighting against the current of how people work, because I think that's just part of why it's been so slow for crypto to be adopted.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot be too early forever, right? I mean, we have been
exactly
for too long at this point. And again, I mean, I do not need to convince educated listener here that this is the right way to go. There are multiple examples. I think recently V and Porto are just changing the game of what it means to be a wallet. It is actually going and saying that, if you have a email ID, I will take care of everything. I am not going to change the non-custodial nature of it, but I'm not going to give the cognitive load to you. I'm going to take a slight security hit, which is saying that I will not lose my email ID. That is, and then that is how, I mean, when is the last time, that when you changed your bank account password, it is not a high cognitive effort for you. Because you know that if I forget it, I'm just going to do something and I will be able to recover my password.
Right.
So it's just a hot wallet kind of a thing, right? So you, of course, don't want to lose. Don't want to give access to someone else, that But it's okay to forget because I can recover. And I mean, everyone from Vitalik to a lot of people have been, advocating that social recoveries and such for a very long time. And I think slowly we are reaching the stage, at least on the wallet side, that it is getting abstracted. I think the next wave is to get not only the wallet access, but the fund access to be also abstract. So that no matter where I have the funds, in whichever shape or form, I should be able to spend it. I should be able to get the user action done if I have enough funds in this ecosystem or beyond.
Right.
And that is what is slowly happening, right? So, previously you go to a wallet, you need to connect your wallet, you need to have enough funds and all that to even see a rate of what your swap would look like. But it's changing. Today, I mean, if you want to buy the Trump meme coin, you could have used your fiat to go and buy it. And all of that is the part of the experience, right? That you do not assume that user to have, soul to be able to buy Trump. And that is what we are actually seeing very, very lately. And that is so good a thing to do. But now we are not only have to think about just Solana or some of these ecosystems, but also beyond. Like if I can have unified balance across the entire blockchain ecosystem, what all actions can I make? Can I only focus on my application and not have to choose which ecosystem has the highest liquidity? Because I know I will be able to access that liquidity irrespective of which ecosystem I build on, so that I can make the best choice about which VM or which programming language or whatever is my need for creating that application.
Absolutely. I mean, I have plenty of friends who, they have their own servers because that's something that they want. So this is what we're talking about, have it so that I can just be on the internet and not care, or I can have a server. Like the security is within my hands if I care or if I don't, So I think that's it's like tapping into dynamics that we already understand. I'd love to hear a little bit more about interoperability between rollups and sovereign chains. Is there any kind of like new possibilities that will be unlocked under what you're building with Avail?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the power of why we started with data availability as the problem statement, and why didn't we straight away choose something like interoperability or cross-chain experiences as the initial problem statement. Because in order to enable cross-chain experiences, you need some fundamental security primitives to be able to give the best-in-class experiences. Briefly, I talked about two chains talking to each other, and that's a bridge. But these two chains, when they talk to each other, can get much better guarantees when they have the same DA layer, for example, right? And so, for example, when we give this interop guarantee to our ecosystem partners, we can give a strong set of security. Whereas when we give it to some other ecosystem partner, we cannot give the equivalent level of security. But the aim is to not create walled gardens. Like I think we have had enough walled gardens in this space. So the idea is to make sure that we still give the same level of experience, although with limited feature set, if possible, to all the chains in the ecosystem. So when two rollups talk to each other, they need to verify the state transition and the ordering of the data. And this is where, the state transition function is being increasingly verified using ZK proofs. We are seeing every day, even yesterday there was this announcement that, one of the earliest and the OG players of optimistic rollups, that is Arbitrum, starting to adopt ZK proofs. I mean, they're starting to think about adopting ZK proofs and such. And that is so good to see in the sense that, your state verification is going to be extremely simple. ZK proofs are one of the easiest to verify, not to create, but to verify are one of the easiest, right? So if someone has done the hard work for you, then everyone can benefit from that verification, which means that this, paranoid guy, a friend of yours who runs everything on their server, still can believe someone else's server because they have a proof of correctness.
Right.
That is what ZK proofs and rollups enable you. I like to talk about rollups as verifiable servers, right? Because it can run on any remote server, but still give you the entire guarantees with a simple, very succinct proof. Right? And then when you have ordering guarantees on something like Avail, is when you can have the entire guarantee. There is no stronger guarantee that you can get. Having DA and having state being verified is the highest sense of guarantee that you can get. And that's what we want to give to the users if it is possible. If not possible, then we will only verify state. If that is also not possible, then we will rely on the validator set of the other chain and so on and so forth. So different chains have different security properties. They have different ways of validating what is correct. And we need to respect their sovereign choices here.
I like sovereign in air quotes there.
Yeah, because sovereign doesn't always mean secure, right? So you can argue that if this movement of creating L1s and independent L1s goes to the extreme, we are going to have a Cosmos-like situation. A Cosmos has shown that creating disparate L1s which are sovereign but want to talk to one another is a hard game to play. So although it completely makes sense for Google to launch an L1, for Stripe to launch an L1, these make sense because they are known for making the best-in-class security practices. But it will not make sense for every person to come in and say that I will become an L1. So we will continuously keep on seeing both-way trends. People like Robinhood are going to aim for L2s because L2s give you the ability to not have to make security choices, only make sovereignty over the state. Whereas others like Stripe or Google will keep on choosing both the security and the state being sovereign in some sense. So that's why I'm taking sovereign in quotes, but it is just a way of saying like how just making independent choices. Like if you give independence to every small district in a place, is going to loosely go into chaos, right? So it depends on which level of sovereignty do you choose for.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take on the differences. When I heard about Google launching their L1, at first I was like, genuinely at first I was like, oh no. And then I was just thinking like, okay, well I don't know, they have the money to compete with something like Bitcoin and Ethereum, sure, but it's literally known as a site that tracks all of your data. So I can't imagine any hardcore crypto people going to use the Google L.
Yeah, again, that is like one of the things that we would need to start sacrificing as, I think that we kind of try to take a very opinionated ivory tower stance sometimes on crypto with saying that, that I think crypto stands for this, like crypto stands for decentralization, crypto stands for privacy, crypto stands for self-sovereignty, crypto stands for, self-sovereign identity, it stands for cryptographic proofs. These are all correct, right? These are all some things that we need to hold on to for our own choices. But
right.
Some of the things, when mass adoption is going to come, you are going to also have bad choices being made by others, right? And you need to be able to still be able to serve them. Because if that doesn't happen, then this technology will be used, but we will be left behind, right?
Right.
No one is stopping people from taking blockchain as technology and building completely parallel rails in the non-blockchain world, right? So if we try to be too staunch opposition of entirety of what this movement is about, then it is not that blockchains are not going to win. They are going to win anyways. It's just some of us might be left behind, which would be a sad thing.
Right. I mean, the technology doesn't have an opinion on what it's being used for, right? So, no, and I think, I like to remind listeners that, in Web 1, there was this whole conversation about sovereignty and privacy. Like, literally everything we're talking about was talked about in the 80s and 90s. So we're not original in this, and we know what happened. So I'm hoping that, we can create a better version of the internet, because I disagree with some of the things that have happened and feel sad about some of the outcomes. But yeah, I think you're totally right that, what's the hill we're going to die on? Because mass adoption is a pretty big mountain I'd like to climb. Don't want to die on the hill just next to it.
Exactly. So are we going to be, stuck in the local maxima, or are we going to go to the global maxima and die on that hill?
The PR Genius is a top crypto PR and growth marketing agency, helping brands globally with expert PR and strategic growth marketing. They've worked with 300 plus projects like Movement Labs and IO.net. Unlike traditional agencies, they charge only on performance. Their services include earned PR opportunities and marketing services to help boost wallet holders and organic X followers. Learn more at www.theprgenius.com.
So you mentioned briefly data availability, which I know is a really critical piece to what Avail is working on. And it's just a critical piece to the blockchain scaling puzzle at large. What are some of the risks that are involved if this layer isn't adequately addressed?
I think it is about security of rollups, right? So depending on what is the security model of your rollup, it can have varyingly different impact. For example, if you are an optimistic rollup and the data behind those computations are not available, then it is a complete security failure for your users. And we have seen that in production, by the way. Not for us, but some of the people who have not taken DA seriously. In the end, users' fund could be stuck or even stolen if DA is not, data is not available and published for the transactions. And for ZK rollups, the risks are lower in the sense that you cannot steal funds, but you can have stuck funds, right? So if you're a ZK rollup and your data is not published, then it might be that if the operator is dishonest, then they might be able to stall all your transactions. So your funds might be stuck. So depending on these kind of roll-up models and such, DA can be an extremely important problem. Even without the roll-up operation and liveness and correctness in question, we can also say that when two roll-ups intercommunicate, it is the ordering guarantee of one roll-up inside the other which takes a crucial part of verification. So if you were a chain and I were another chain, you need to know that what the exact order of transactions were in blockchain A.
Right.
And that is why it plays a very, very crucial role. So DA is your source of truth in terms of how the transactions were ordered. And in the cross-chain world, today I think if we kind of take it as a given that cross-chain interactions are far and few, and it's going to be slow, and it's going to be once in a while and so on. So we don't need to optimize for those experiences. But increasingly, when multiple cross-chain apps are going to get built, if I can change the relative ordering of a transaction in these two chains, I can basically extract a lot of cross-chain MEV and all that. So we go down this rabbit hole of not just single-chain MEV, but cross-chain MEV, and what can malicious actors do, what is your sequencer risk, and so on and so forth. So although individually one chain might be secure and honest in whatever sense you want to define it, but in a cross-chain world, even secure instances can get insecure when there are cross-chain interactions happen.
Right. Prabal, I'm noticing a lot of air quotes. I really like the kind of footnotes here to things are, quote safe, quote truth.
Yeah, because I think I come from a more academic kind of a background, which means that I can also debate against me in these kind of discussions, right? That when you do not define, and that is a familiar problem that I feel in blockchain space is that there is no real definition that you can hold someone up to, which means that I can call something safe today and call something unsafe, the same thing unsafe tomorrow, and I can be correct on both the terms.
When has that ever happened in crypto?
Yeah. So I like to kind of, say that, again, doesn't matter how I am saying things, but the definitions of some of these important pieces are crucial in order to say that what does it mean to something be secure or something be really sovereign or something be really live or complete or correct or whatever. So that, again, depends on the definition.
All right, sounds like we've got to write the treatise later today, Prabal. Let's get it in our calendars. I come from an academic background as well, so I'm definitely feeling what you're saying for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, it was a big summer. We had a really exciting ETHCC at Cannes, and there was a ton of just innovation around rollups and interoperability. So that's something that, we're really seeing a lot of energy behind. Were there any trends or products that stood out to you that you've seen over the last couple of months, or anything that's, you would say is a signal about where the industry is headed?
I think clearly stablecoins, RWA, traditional finance, that is a clear trend. I mean, I do not need to talk about it in crypto narrative or crypto meta sense, but these are just general realities that is becoming increasingly undeniable is the next kind of action space. And that is such a great thing to happen, because you are getting, average user is not only getting access to all this technology, but with the regulatory clarity, existing players with distribution is able to tap into these technologies. So it is a culmination of many years of work, technical, legal, social, and community and jurisdiction, you want to call it whatever. All of these are coming together and creating new rails which people are well acquainted and we have been building up for. I mean, there can be many different camps in a sense that, how do you want to, is the stable coin of X kind better than that of Y and so on. Those are separate discussions, as I have kind of said before. But it is undeniable that with the emergence of all these types of stablecoins and existing financial players who are coming into the space, people are going to get access to the technology that we have been building as a community for such a long time. And when that comes in, we are able to not only build better products, but we are able to make better impact. And who doesn't want to build technology which has more impact, right? So that
exactly.
Means that developers come in, more finances come in, more investment come in, and that is how we will create, what we call as Web3. It's not a different kind of a web, but it's just the next iteration of how we imagine the web should be.
I really like that, because I think there's a lot of combatant kind of energy if we're Web 2 versus Web 3. And you're right. It's really just no, this is just the next logical step. This is just making it better for everyone, not just the crypto maxis.
No, absolutely. And that is exactly why a Stripe and a Google and Robinhood and this plethora of traditional players all coming out. I mean, BlackRocks and you name it. You name it of the world, they are taking crypto seriously. And that is, when these guys come in, it becomes undeniable, is what I'm trying to say. That it is no longer a debate, it's no longer an experiment. They are putting in real money and real effort, and that will lead to the next generation of experiences. Whether we like that experience or not is a different problem.
I know. Some of us will be sad that we're not, on the fringe anymore. But like you said, I think it is something that is going to ultimately benefit humanity as a whole. We have a lot of problems coming up with data and security and even, AI fitting into these things. And I really am optimistic about how crypto can be a solution to a lot of these issues. So Absolutely. It works better when there are more people using it.
Exactly. And not only that the attributable TAM becomes so much bigger that even if you build, so for example, let's take a concrete example, right? So if you build a privacy product today, it might be said that, what percentage of users are going to use it. And if you say my total percentage of user is 1%, it's not a big enough market to actually tap into. But
Right.
think that you grow X on the total number of users, then that 1% also grows, right? Which means that your unviable products become viable then, right? And I'm not saying privacy is that much of a niche. It's a reality, it will be used, but even, experimental ideas are going to be, addressable. Like today on Web 2, if I want to, I don't know, forget Web 2, if I just want to make a mechanical keyboard, it's not like the entire world uses mechanical keyboard, right? Or if
Right.
I want to use this very, very specific switch of this mechanical keyboard in this particular shape and ergonomic and all that, the amount of users might be small percentage, but it's still big enough for a company to have a product, right? So it's the same in the blockchain space as well, and that's what we should be joyous about. Not that what the popular product is, but that the unpopular products can also be viable.
I mean, there are 8 billion people on this globe. I think there are plenty of niche products and niche offerings to be had.
And not only that, I would like to argue that we should not limit ourselves with 8 billion users and people on the planet, because increasingly each one of us will have multiple of these AI agents or whatever we want to call them, right? And each one of these will need verifiable internet to proceed. Otherwise, think about how easy it is to fake a person who has at least social checks. Right? When I use something, I have a few social checks. Like I am not clicking on a Riverside link if someone else is sending me. If I've never used Riverside before. If I have never downloaded this web browser before. So I have a few of the social checks. But with this plethora of agents, which can be, then you can reverse engineer and do malicious kind of codes and so on and so forth. So there's a huge thing about whether it is secure or not. But if they are not verifiable interactions, then it's going to go down very, very bad. Because then there can be a lot more man-in-the-middle attacks. It can be a lot more, vulnerability exploitations and so on and so forth. So we don't need to, limit ourselves with 8 billion. I would love to say each one of us having hundreds of AI agents. So we are actually having 800 billion so-called users. Previously, we had this notion that, bots were bad. But if you see today and anytime, most of the automated actions are, the value of that cumulative value is much, much higher than just, users clicking buttons.
Hey, I love the idea of my AI agents checking out my yield farms on my behalf while I'm sleeping, Absolutely. Real Vinny's got to chill. Totally. So, all right. So let's get to the huge news that was released just today, just an hour before we started chatting, which is Avail has acquired Arcana, a top chain abstraction protocol. And according to the press release, Arcana's chain abstraction, wallet, authentication, and MPC frameworks will be added to the Avail stack. So that's very exciting. Congratulations. Can you tell us what this means for Avail and what users can look forward to?
Absolutely. And thank you. I think we had been working on these cross-chain protocols and cross-chain experiences. We wanted to be making an impact not only in the front end but also on the back end protocol side. We had been building ZK backends, we have been building TE backends. This has been going on for years. And on the front end side as well, we had this Nexus SDK which used to have abstraction of what the experiences would look like for a dApp and so on. Arcana, on the other end, were close partners of ours. They had been building the chain abstraction side of things with MPC style backends, with authentication frameworks on the backend and wallet and so on. And when we started working very closely together, we looked at it and said, we should work together. There is no point in making it work, separately from each other. And that's why all of this happened. What this means for the end user is that they're not only going to get best-in-class security with ZK and TEs and such, but they are also going to get much more practical, close to production experiences with other types of backends like MPCs. But apart from all, they will not be able to see the difference when they have what they have used in existing protocols versus what they will be using with our ecosystem partners later. So, as we move on, we are going to have more and more of these partners across different ecosystems. So Arcana today supports, I think, 9 ecosystems. And we are talking with top protocols and top apps across those protocols to start integrating the Avail stack. And across this stack, this is exactly what I have been talking about till this point. Users will not have to care which chain their assets sit on. They don't have to care what form that asset sits on. They will be able to just use an application. They won't have to care what application, like that application is deployed on what chain, what is the virtual machine, whether my wallet supports it or not. We are going to abstract all of those complexities out. The developer will have full flexibility and control over the security that they give to their users. And finally, we already have shown some of these demos where we are going to show the world what actual multi-chain experiences are going to look like. This will be through liquidity backends, this will be through message passing backends, through stablecoin burn and mint protocols, through our own Avail token being circulated on the backgrounds. But at the end of it, the user will not have to care.
And I'm really excited to see how this takes off. I mean, it sounds like exactly the thing that we've been hoping to share with our friends who are tired of us talking about how cool Bitcoin is. Awesome. Well, Prabal, this has been amazing. I like to end interviews with a lightning round, a couple of quick hit questions. You game?
Yep.
Okay. If you could solve one blockchain problem instantly, what would it be?
Bridgeless. Like that would be it. Like, because bridges got hacked a lot, bridges have been exploited a lot, bridges have been a point of frustration for a lot of people till now. And
yes,
it's, as I said, like it's not about removing bridges, it's about making the experiences bridgeless, right? And that's the difference there. And that's why I want to repeat what I said, so that people don't say like, oh, you're never going to get away with bridges. I do not intend to. That is not possible, right? And the point is that the user should not have to care about it.
Make it a nice old bridge that no one, everyone falls asleep on. Okay, what is one blockchain trend that you think is overhyped?
I mean, AI.
It's hard to narrow down, huh?
I would say, I know we talked a lot about these AI agents and such, but I would still say AI is the most overhyped blockchain trend. The thing with it is, we are trying to solve a problem which again the users don't care about, right? So AI in itself is going on pretty fine. They have their own ambitions and goals. They have their own benchmarks and stuff. They are not worried about the verifiability of it. The same thing that we discussed, I'm going to counter myself, right? That yes, this is an experience that would be great, but they are not worried about it. They have much bigger problems to solve. They are talking about AGI right now.
Right.
And this doesn't come in their way, right? So although we think, I'm just talking about myself, don't want to involve anyone else. Although I think that it is definitely important problem to solve, the blockchain trend is overhyped, because it is not blockchains which are going to change what AI looks like. It's AI which is going to change how blockchains look like. So that is why I think it is overhyped. They will of course come and they will use it, but not for all the craziness that we are coming up with. They will include it on their own time, own free time, on their own chosen cadence, and we will have very little influence when they start doing it.
I can't wait for the sci-fi writers to get their hands on the end of this conversation. All right. And then the last question, what's your favorite chain?
Avail, of course. I mean, I have to say, Avail, I have this, what do the lawyers call, fiduciary duty, to tell this. But I think apart from Avail, if I have to say it has to be Ethereum, right? I mean, it is Ethereum because it has shown resilience, which is much more than what we have seen anywhere else. And I, of course, have deep respect for Bitcoin and many others who have been for a very long time. I have deep respect for them. But if I have to talk about my favorite chain beyond Avail, it has to be Ethereum, because it gives you the programmability, it gives you the liberty to do sovereign choices and build L2s and all the other rollups. You can make whatever you want on top of it. You can tap into their user base, their developer base, their EVM style, and still they would be wholeheartedly supporting you. And that is the beauty of that community. So a chain is not by its technology, it's by its community, right? And that is why I love that community so much. That is, anywhere else you go, you're immediately cornered if you say anything beyond that chain. And
right.
I think only Ethereum is where you can talk about any other chain, and then also you will be wholeheartedly accepted, and that is good. I mean, of course, there will be people who will not accept you, but that doesn't matter.
Well, that has nothing to do with what we're accomplishing here. And the great news is Avail is going to work for anybody who wants to use it on whatever chain. So I think that's a really nice way to end this conversation. Prabal, thank you so much for joining us on the Defiant Podcast. We'll definitely be keeping tabs on you guys and all the great things that you're bringing to the ecosystem.
Thanks a lot, Vinny. Thanks for inviting me. It was a pleasure to discuss all the different things. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Defiant Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with someone who's curious about the future of tech. And join us next week when we'll be talking to Fakul Maya about the state of Bitcoin mining and what institutions and sovereign actors are signaling about Bitcoin's next phase. But until then, stay informed, stay tuned, stay defiant.